Good morning, Kate.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for inviting me here.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. It's really nice to meet you.
You have such a beautiful backyard. I was saying that I think my boys would be thrilled to run back here. Your beautiful flower garden as well.
We'll bring them over.
So how long have you been at this property?
We've been here for 24 years. We moved here July 6th, I believe. It was July 4th weekend, 1996. So it's been 24 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you have a strong connection to this home. Did
Oh
you
my
raise
gosh.
your children in this home?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And pretty much everything that you see in the yard we planted.
Oh.
Yeah, so we have a real strong connection to a lot of, I mean, some of the, like these bigger trees and things, but everything else, all the vegetation is hand labor, our labor, and weeding and all of that goes with it, yeah.
So what brought you to this area?
My husband was working for Norden Laboratory in Lincoln, Nebraska, yeah, and it was a subsidiary affiliation with Pfizer. And they had 100 family relocation that were going to come to Connecticut to work at the Groton and New London sites. And we were one of those 100 families. So here we are, 24 years later. Yeah. So we came and we put our roots down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what do you love most about this area?
What do I love most? Oh my gosh.
That's a hard question, isn't it?
How much time do you have, Nickie? I love the people, of course, the people. The schools were the reason that we settled in this town specifically. We love the environment, the culture, the closeness to both New York and Boston, the shoreline. The seasons are less severe than what we had in Nebraska, believe it or not. There's so much to do recreationally. What am I missing? The art opportunities are phenomenal, the art schools.
What's your favorite thing to do around here?
Wow, right now, campaign. I'm campaigning because I'm running for the state rep for the 37th district. Other than that, though, I love to bike. I have a bicycle that I like to get on every single day and ride. I love to work in my garden. We planted a lot of our basil and tomato from seed. We started them from seed last February.
That's very ambitious.
Yeah, yeah. What else? I like to paint, but I've been taking lessons over at the Lime Art Academy,
Oh.
at the Lime Art School, but it closed because of COVID. So, yeah, my pastel painting my palette's kind of hung up for a little bit.
Speaking of COVID, we should probably mention that we are outside.
Yes.
And we are sitting 6 feet apart.
We
have our masks,
We
but
do.
for the purpose of sharing, we've taken them off, but we are adequately distanced.
Adequately distanced, absolutely. And that's number one priority for me because I've had friends get sick and I've lost a couple of friends during this COVID crisis. So it's no joke. It's really serious and I don't think we're out of the woods for a long time.
Unfortunately, no, and schools are opening, trying to plan during this time, and I can only imagine what they're going through at this time. So what is your favorite thing to do around here?
My favorite thing to do, I love to bike.
Yes.
I love to bake. I love to cook.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing to bake?
Well, to bake, I'm famous for cinnamon rolls. Two things: cinnamon rolls and banana bread. Yeah.
Yes.
And as far as like dinner last night, we made gnocchi.
Oh.
You like that? You
I
have
do.
a little Italian.
I am Italian.
Okay.
I'm 100% Italian if there's such a thing.
Okay, cool. I love that. So the kids had bought it. You know, we have 5 adults living in the house right now. So it's, you know, who knows what's going to be in the refrigerator. And I always like to use what we have available. So I looked up a recipe and found first to boil it and then to saute it. And then I stirred in. The recipe called for broccoli. Didn't have broccoli, used zucchini. So I'm pretty creative. It's always like, you know, if you don't have it, use what you have and do what you can do with what you have. And always thinking outside of the box. So I like to read, I like to write. There's really nothing I don't like to do. My hobbies just go on and on. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And so you're running for the 37th district.
I know, East Lyme and Salem. Yeah.
East Lyme and Salem. Absolutely. And so that encompasses the school system of East Lyme
Of course.
and Salem. And the schools are facing reopening, and what in terms of what you'd like to, why are you running? Well, let's start there. Why?
For state rep,
Yeah, yeah,
because in one small sentence, I want to make a difference.
yep.
I want to make a difference, and I want to be your voice in Hartford. I'm really good at listening and getting people to open up and talk to me. So I am. And so what happens is that I hear the story and I hear the understory. And then I think in terms of a general picture, like, how can we fix that? Or how can we make that better? How can we improve the system and the process? So I want to figure that out so that we can make those changes. I feel like our current representation hasn't been strong and hasn't really listened, hasn't been a part of taking care of our people.
In fact, that's how we met, because you were really out there connecting. It's so hard to do in these times because you can't be out socializing. But I have seen you in almost every Zoom call, Zoom meeting that I've been in. So I'm a longtime resident.
Oh, okay.
And
You can give me some lessons.
yeah,
then.
I'm a longtime resident, and I'm getting involved in my own way during this time, trying to focus on our conversations with what's going on in town, and the multiple Zoom calls that are being offered. And I've seen you in every single one, and you really are a good listener.
Oh,
and
thank you.
Not only are you a good listener, but you ask good questions.
Mm.
And I think that's really important,
Mm.
because that shows that you are truly listening. And so when you're talking and you're in all these Zoom calls and you're talking to all these residents, what are some of the things that they're saying?
They're worried, they're concerned. People are very anxious, highly anxious. And I think that I've worked with highly anxious people my whole life because I'm a speech pathologist by training. So worked with kids or parents whose children had language and learning difficulties for the most part, or autism or whatever it was, something along that. And people are worried about their kids. So what I hear is a lot of anxiety, people asking really good questions. How is it going to be safe? And I feel that for the most part, people are just giving the same old responses and not thinking about how it could be done differently or how it should be done differently. And I don't think anything should be ruled out as far as a possibility. You know, if it's year-round school, have we even talked about that yet? If it's longer school days, if it's virtual meetings where the parents can Zoom into the meetings with the teachers. I mean, we haven't even started to look at some of the possibilities, I think, that are available to us. And there's good examples out there. We're a country that information is available. It's not like other parts of the world where the screen goes black if something controversial comes up on the screen.
Yeah, and you're not saying that necessarily any one of those things is the end-all be-all solution, but the point that you're making is that we need to start thinking differently.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we had to think differently when COVID hit because all of a sudden we turned on a dime and we're, no more getting on the buses. Kids just probably left their backpack or their favorite stuffed animal at school, and then here they are at home for the next, almost like 6 months now, right?
Yeah.
No, not quite. 4 months.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, it'll be 6 months by the time they go back to school.
Right.
And yeah, I've learned during this time that what we thought was set in stone isn't, and we have to really start thinking about things like year-round school, for example. That may work, it may not, but it needs to be looked at as a possible solution, because right now, the way we always did things is going to have to shift.
Absolutely. Well, and the other idea too is that we're always like first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade. So maybe we should look at it in terms of skills. So what skill level is, you have two beautiful boys, right? What skill levels are they at? What do they need as far as their next level of not intervention, but instruction and opportunities so that they can take on new understandings and move to the next level? And each of us are at a different level with all of that. So that's another thing that's really interesting is I really believe in adults, people my age and older, continuing to have opportunities to learn through the school system. And then in turn, there's a lot of people, I keep talking about my friend Harry Danis, who's 96 years old. Rich and I went to see him last night. and he was giving us an instruction on WW2 and what it was like and how he had built our town hall and how it's so important to look at not just the construction costs but also the maintenance costs. If you're paying $2,000 a month to heat and cool a building, has that been factored into the cost of the reconstruction or the renovation of a building and all of those kinds of things? And he said the town hall that he designed in the 70s has never needed a paint job. Now that saved us money. I mean, do we think? I mean, and those are the kinds of things we need to think deeper or more laterally about what we're saying and how we're analyzing information.
And this is what I've noticed about you is that you are learning from every single person you talk to, and you're taking those pieces and you're sort of just weaving them together in this great tapestry of representing all of us. Because you really are a good listener. I wish people had the experience to sit down with you and be in a meeting with you, because you really you ask amazing questions and you really are a good listener, and it's very obvious that you care and that you really are doing this for the right reasons. And
you know what? It's not about me. Seriously, it's not about me, because I have a granddaughter and she's this beautiful little 6-month-old baby right now, and part of me is just like, Kate, why don't you just play with the baby? But I would get bored. I would get really restless really fast, and she's adorable, but how many times can you say ba ba ba? Right? So it's fun to do and play and do other things.
Yeah, it is. And so what are some of the things that you want to do as a representative?
Well, I'm really concerned about the environment. I feel like our water is a scarce resource and we need to protect it. So the inland wetland meeting that we had the other night of extending it to 500 feet from property is really a smart thing to do. I think that we need to keep track of what the manganese levels were high last time when the report came out. I think the bottle bill needs to be updated. It was in the 70s when it was first introduced. When I ride my bike around town, I see those little Nips bottles all around, and people just throw them out the window, I guess. But that's not right. That's not protecting and saving our earth. That's our resource. I've been recycling. I was there for the first Earth Day. It's probably before you were born, Nickie.
No, not quite.
Okay, but I was there for the first Earth Day as a young high school student, so taken by it, like, what is the ozone level and what is this all about and why do we need to do this? So it just made me, ever since then, I've been a pretty strong proponent. I've been a very strong proponent, I should say, of composting, preserving, low carbon footprint, all of the things, solar panels wherever possible, and solar panels that are smart.
And what do you think as a town we can do, or an area, the two towns, to be better at that?
Environmental issues?
Yeah.
I think that the use of pesticides and herbicides isn't smart. We need to reduce or eliminate the uses of that. I think the plastic that we have, the single-use plastic, doesn't make any sense. The list is really endless. We just need to be more cognizant. I think transportation, to save people driving all around, if we had some kind of trolley system or something, I think people would use it.
I do, and what a beautiful addition that would be to this area, to see a trolley go down Main Street, Niantic. I could just imagine.
It'd be so much fun, and people would do it. I know people would do it. I guess we have to wait till COVID or masking or something, but I think there's so many ideas and things that we could put into place. And biking, bike lanes. Bike paths.
Bike lanes, yes.
Yeah, because you know what? When we ride our bike, like Ancient Highway is right behind our house, and to get up here, you had to do this little figure 8 a couple of times to get up here.
Absolutely. And so what are some other things that you're focused on?
Well, justice. Justice is really important to me. I grew up in a family where my mom was a widow at 37 years old. I was her 8th child of 9. I had a little brother.
Wow.
They called us Irish twins because he and I were less than a year apart. So when my father died, my little brother was 2 months old. My mom, 9 of us, my sister was 10 at the time, so she raised all of us. We all went to college. She was a speech and drama teacher. So she just raised us with the spirit that we have to look out for each other. We have to take care of each other. it's all about sharing and caring and focusing on what the issues are. I didn't know my father, and I always asked my mom, what was my father like? And she told me three things. She said he was very handsome, movie star handsome. She said he was very intelligent, could recite poetry and loved to sing and that kind of thing. But also, most importantly to me, he looked out for the underdog. So I was the kind of kid, you were a teacher, I was the kind of kid who was in school, if there was somebody else who was struggling, I would try to help that person. And I found that I actually learned and grew by the opportunity of helping that person to grow and to be a better person too.
I love that. I love that. Similarly, that makes me think of my grandfather, who also rooted for the underdog, and that was when people spoke of him. That's what people said. So it really is. We need to help those that are being marginalized right now,
Yes.
and help those who need a voice and maybe we're always heard.
Yes.
So I'm so glad to hear you say that.
Well, you know, it's just like everyone is talking about economics and economics and economics, right? And how can we make our area a better area? But what I'm seeing right now is that our minimum wage is pretty abysmal. And I was working at Chico's a couple of years ago, kind of as a fun thing. Well, some of my colleagues, my coworkers, they would close at night and then open in the morning. Well, this was located at the casino, so closing at night meant 1 o'clock. Opening in the morning was like 9 or 10. And you had to be all dolled up, all dressed up, ready to go. Some of these people had young kids. Some of them were single. So I always felt like I was in a situation where I could support them and take over, help them on their shift kind of thing if they needed to. But those kinds of things need to be reviewed. And a lot of them were working 2 jobs and they didn't have a car, so they had to wait for somebody to get a ride home. And lots of times they didn't have insurance. And lots of times if they had an illness or something, they couldn't get coverage because it was a pre-existing condition. I mean, the list just goes on and it's endless. And then if family medical issues came up, the family medical leave didn't always apply for them. So we need to help people. It's not just about the executive making top dollar and getting more paid sick days or more vacation days. It's about helping every single person along the continuum so that we all can survive and thrive and do better. And unfortunately, it's the little guy, my opinion, that suffers the most, that struggles the hardest.
Absolutely. And I've seen you be in touch with sort of the common man when we're all in these calls together, and you're asking the questions, you're talking to people, and the fact that you are really living here and connected to the community and asking these questions and finding out what people's concerns are, it's so important.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Well, it's very motivating because it's not just another day. Some of my friends who are my age are kind of in a quandary for what to do, and I'm like, wow, get involved, because there's so many things that we can change right now in our society, in our world, and people need people with energy and ideas and good skill sets. So there's no reason to not get involved. So I'd say join the team.
I know, because when I said, oh, what do you want to focus on? There's so much to focus on, right? There's so many things to get involved with the environment of our community. You're right. We had the plastic bag controversy in our area, but with the environment, with schools, with COVID, there's so much going on right now that's affecting our town. So here's a fun question. If you were granted $1 million grant,
Wow.
$1 million grant for East Lyme and Salem,
Wow.
and you could do whatever you wanted with that $1 million grant, what would you do?
That's a really big question. Well, my first thought is I always had this dream of having like a parent training center. And I always feel like if you start from parents, and parents knowing what a value and what a gift their children are. Like I said, my daughter just had a baby, and she and her husband moved home from Brooklyn, and we did quarantine strictly for 2 weeks, I've got to tell you. But If parents could know how to educate their kids and gave them the opportunities to really make a difference, I think that all of us would be better, and it would be across the board. It would be for everything. So early childhood education, a lot of like multicultural education, bias training, um, environmental. And I really like the idea of hands-on training. My kids grew up on the kitchen counter making things with me. They grew up in the garden digging with me and trimming things with me. They grew up on my back, before they could ride bikes with me, kind of thing. So I think if I could have $1 million, that would be probably what I would want to do. Just a really amazing system. And then with that, I would, hope to get really good like transportation again, back and forth, where the two towns could be so easily connected. And infrastructure. Our infrastructure is not strong in this area. Did you realize when COVID hit how slow all of a sudden everything got? There were so many people who were trying to log on and get information and be on Zoom calls and have their remote meetings. It was so slow. It's really abysmal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a shock for all of us. And, when it happened all of a sudden, in a week, schools are closed, and in a week, everyone's staying in their house and quarantining, and then not having the infrastructure in place, it really was apparent.
Right. And
Yeah.
a lot of people didn't even have devices, but I think our school system did a really beautiful job of
Yes.
rolling out mobile devices for everybody, so everyone had some access to a device.
And I also really liked how the schools made sure everyone had food access.
Yes.
That they did that pretty quickly as well.
Yes. There's people who are hungry, and I don't even think we realize, we live in a little bubble almost, and I think we've gotten to be more and more like that recently. And I know when 2016 came around with the election, it motivated me. Some people just put their bubble on and then just said, I'm not going to get involved. That was what motivated my husband and me both, really, just to get out there and start doing what we could do to serve everybody that we could serve. Because to me, it's all about public service. It's not about being in front of being in a picture or being with somebody just to have a photo opportunity. It's about, I make peanut butter sandwiches once a month for Niantic Community Church, and they get dropped off over to a meal site in New London. And to me, it's about doing that and sharing that, because you know what? It's a small thing, but for maybe somebody, maybe that's the only thing that they have to eat that might be their meal for the day.
And to me, that's the difference, if I may say, between you and your opponent, is that I've seen, people show up for a photo opportunity and leave within minutes, and you're there making the peanut butter sandwiches behind the scenes that nobody can see, but that's the work that needs to be done versus
Right.
the performance that.
Well, I am kind of a performer though too, because I took, my mom was a speech and drama teacher, so I went to clown school, and I also learned like puppetry and juggling and balloon sculpturing and all that. But then also when we go to the American Legion Club breakfast, I take my puppet with me, and it's an icebreaker because you can go up to every single table. And it's so funny because of course I'll go up to the kids because they're just easy. But then sometimes I'll have a lady say, you need to come over here because she wants me to talk to her husband who maybe has a little dementia or something like that, so that I can bring him out of his shell. And it's just amazing what you can do if you just make yourself a little bit vulnerable. Of course I'm silly, but I'm approachable.
Yes,
And
you
I don't-
really are. You really are. That was going to be my next question, but maybe you've already answered. I was going to say, what would people find surprising about you? Maybe the fact that you can make balloon animals.
Oh, I should have brought some for you to take home to your kids.
would be the answer. That's fun.
Yeah, well, I've run a couple of half marathons.
Oh!
Yeah, I did that. My son died. We lost our oldest son about 10 years ago, and it was a really tragic loss, of course, and I'm sorry if I'm upsetting you by telling you that. But the way I recovered, the way I got back on my feet literally was to get on my feet and to start running. We took, my daughter and I took a trip together to the Bermudas, and then after that I was just like, I'm going to start running, and I started training and ran 3 or 4 half marathons and got really strong and really loved it, and just really learned to listen to the birds again and learn to value the colors and the shades and the lights and every little gift that we have that comes to us each day.
I think a lot of people can relate to that. Everybody probably has a loss,
Of
a hard loss, and one of the beautiful things we do have in town is a lot of support for grief support.
We
have
do.
the Brian Daigle Foundation, and they do their jingle run, is
Yes,
it called?
yes, yes.
In December. I don't think we got to do it this year, did we?
No, I don't think so.
But I know they do that in the cold weather, and they have their building where they do offer so many services. So I'm so glad that we do have that in this area.
And I think we need more social services. And the idea recently has been coming up. They're calling it defund the police. I don't think that's a good way to describe it. I think it's reimagining the police. We're not going to defund anybody. We cannot defund anybody, but we have to reimagine how to do it. Just like we're talking about how to redo schools in the time of COVID and how we can go back and be safe, because we know education is important. So if we looked at police officers in a different light, do you know they have bicycles in their basement?
I didn't.
Well, I would love to see them up and down Main Street on bikes periodically. Yes. I'm not sure if the bikes are still running anymore or pedaling or riding, but they're not using them. And why not use them? And I was really impressed. I heard the other day that there's a sign inside that says prevent gun violence. So they're all about gun safety too. And I think that we need to really imagine how we could do that job of having social services. Do you know about the program in Eugene, Oregon called Cohort?
I do not.
So the idea is that they got 3 vans together, 24-hour, 7-day-a-week service, and rather than having a police call for a domestic concern and suicide ideation, or maybe if somebody says somebody is missing kind of thing, a social worker and a medic and then one other person shows up. I can't remember the third person. Maybe it's the driver. So they go to the house, and rather than having the police come on that call, they have a different paradigm to service that. And doing something like that saved Eugene, Oregon, thousands of dollars. And it's a town 10 times the size of our town. But I think the model is so perfect for what we could do and how we could do it, because we're still thinking of how things have been done a long time ago. And that was the interesting thing, I have to tell you, when I first moved here from Nebraska, people are like, we don't do it that way. And you know what? It was standard in Nebraska when I moved here. Like 24 years ago, they had been doing it for 10 years. So 34 years ago, they had been doing it. And when I got here, people were saying, we don't do it that way. And I'm like, I don't understand, so slowly, I know it's a
Change is slow. Change is slow. And you talk about anxiety. I think change brings about anxiety until it happens, and then you have this wonderful change and you say, why didn't we do this sooner?
Exactly. Yep. Because we were just looking at the town budget, and social worker was proposed for our town, but then it was taken off of the books. And if we could do more social services and more intervention and train our police officers, help them. I worked in New London for a while and loved working in New London, but I did have one instance where a kid kind of lost it and beat me up, and I ended up needing to go to the doctor afterwards. I needed a little bit of help getting back on my feet after that, kind of a little bit PTSD. I'm sure it's 10 times that for our police officers. Our police officers need to have a de-escalation experience, I think, after they've had any kind of encounter that's not...
They need mental health support too.
Constantly.
Yeah.
And it can't just be once a year or every 3 years. I mean, it needs to be, it needs to be a constant, just like you do. If you're a teacher, at the end of the day, how could I have done that better? How could, why did the little boy or little girl, why did they struggle? How can I make it so it's more to their liking? And, constantly, reimagining.
So I think about the reimagining. I love that. And I think about the bikes in the basement. I think about this cohort program that you were talking about, and I wonder, how do you find out about those things?
Oh my gosh, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. I have an amazing team of people who are helping me find different articles and things, people who are working for me. And if anybody wants to shoot me an article or send me information, I would love to learn more. But there's good information out there, and I think we just always have to look for what a good example might be. Not like it's going to fit or apply, but what's possible.
Yes.
And adaptation. If you bring something into the house, like, I don't know, what's something your kids don't like to eat, maybe?
Oh, they like to eat everything.
Okay.
But my youngest, he's not much of a vegetable eater.
Okay. So the first time you brought broccoli into the house, would he eat it? Not necessarily, but if you, I don't know, saute it or grill it or grow it or make it. Yeah, if you see it starting from scratch, then you have a whole another level of appreciation. So I'm just saying, it's all about experience and opportunity. I just saw something last night, and it was all about bias training, and it was all about us accepting people of different ethnicities and different color. And the activity I thought was so amazing, because what they did was to show pictures of beautiful, famous, artistic Black men. And as long as you see those beautiful faces, then you start to disassociate anything negative with being Black. You see the person as talented, smart, handsome, well, like a spokesman, somebody who's eloquent, a poet, just like all these adjectives that can describe this person in a much different, better way. But that's the work that we need to start to do, to build those changes into helping people to reimagine again, seeing things differently.
And I think that's really just the theme of what you're trying to do. Just reimagine. We don't always have to do it the same way, because there might be a better way. Change can be quite good.
Well, people, yeah. And I know people are afraid of change, so it happens slowly but collaboratively, and bringing in the stakeholders and letting people ask their questions and helping people get answers and processing it, and helping people to live with a little bit level of uncomfortableness too. Because the training that I've been getting and having conversations with people with Black Lives Matter is, we have to have those uncomfortable conversations before we know that we can have change.
Yeah. Uncomfortability is almost catalyst for change.
Yeah, I like that. I've never heard that word before. I like that.
Yeah. Discomfort is a catalyst for change, maybe. Yeah.
No, I like that. I like uncomfortability.
Yeah, I just made it up on the spot.
It's multisyllabic. It's very impressive.
So I guess my final question would be, what haven't we covered that you want to make sure that the residents of East Lyme and Salem know before we wrap up here?
I'm available. I will talk to you. I will listen. I'm approachable. I won't discredit you or discard you. I will try to be your advocate. I will be your advocate. I'll be your voice. I'm not afraid to speak up. I had 6 older brothers, and I had to speak up. Yeah, I had to speak up. One thing my mom said to me when I was a little girl, I said to my mom, "Mommy, the boys are picking on me." She said to me, "What do you want me to do, fight your own battles?" I was kind of like, yeah. But you know what? She really taught me to stand up and to speak up and to follow through. And that's what I want to do.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
It was so nice to sit down with you.
So nice to sit down with you. Very nice.